Hi, I'm your Gemini friend. So this video is going to be about Chiron in the third house and Chiron in Gemini. What Chiron is as an energy, I do have a video in the description where I'm going over it much more in depth. But the basic idea of Chiron, this is the wounded healer energy. It's something that we suffer from so that we have a very particular understanding and talent towards helping other people with this problem. It's a very deeply vulnerable part of us, but it's really important to focus on healing it because this is what integrates our material, worldly life on Earth as humans with our soul purpose and our connection to everything. Chiron can give us a sense of purpose. And I do offer personal natal chart readings and synastry chart readings if you're interested in my insight on your chart, but let's get into this. So Chiron is in each individual sign for a totally different amount of time, but what's very personal to you is going to be the house that it's in, because while many people might have it in a particular sign, depending on how long it's spent there, the house placement, this is the area of life that Chiron is activated in for you. So definitely pay attention to your house if your Chiron is in Gemini. When we're going over the energy of Gemini and the third house, let's start with what's different about them, since most of the things that I'm going to go over are what they have in common. So Chiron in Gemini is more about the behavior of Gemini, the traits, the embodiment of the persona, while the third house, this is a specific area of life regarding the way that we learn. It's mental, it's intellectual, it's the way that we communicate with people, how we deal with words, how fast we learn, how fast we talk, the way that we talk, the way that we connect with other people, our relationship with details in our immediate environment. Because what this comes down to is Gemini energy and third house energy represents the stage of life where we're learning to talk, we're noticing things around us, we're becoming curious, we're trying to make sense of things. So this house is also strongly related to the siblings, because if you do have siblings, they're some of the first people that you interact with and really start to form a relationship. Our siblings have a lot of influence over the way that we communicate and read people, and something about this energy, whether it is that you have siblings or you do not have siblings and are feeling that lack. With this placement, this can potentially tie siblings to your Chiron wound. And this can feel like isolation, or it can feel like difficult relationships or various other formative experiences. The third house has to do with our development, socially, intellectually. It's all about feedback, experimentation, the way that we interact with information and with our immediate surroundings. So this is overall our relationship with our intellect and our communication in relationships with language, with information. While Chiron being expressed through Gemini is more about the personality attachment to Gemini concepts. If you have Chiron in Gemini, the wounding is in the expression of the energy. If you have Chiron in the third house, the wounding is more likely having to do with your communication or your learning in some way. So when it comes to Gemini energy in its more wounded expression, let's think about Gemini and the purpose of Gemini. It's all about collecting information, spreading that information, and keeping this constant flow going. This is why it's typically described as curious and talkative and playful. There is a real lightheartedness to it. But the lightheartedness can be something that is very much a facade, because this energy really desires to keep things light. It desires to make sure that we are facilitating conversation as smoothly as possible. And that's why this energy can be inherently very naturally manipulative. And manipulative, I do not mean in a negative way, because I don't know another word to explain subtle, suggestive, or the subtleties of how Gemini energy communicates, but there's a lot of mirroring, a lot of matching other people's language and energy, and a lot of prediction, a lot of assumption, and ultimately a very strong attachment to the information that you have to share, to contribute, and your ability to collect information. So starting with the lighthearted energy. Having issues within Gemini energy can be a difficulty in expressing your truth based off of wanting to be received well, based off of how you assume that someone might take the information you're giving them. It's like all of this thinking way too far ahead, potentially very anxious energy regarding how you're going to be received, whether or not you're going to be able to contribute. There can be an extreme sense of anxiety when it comes to conversations because, yeah, Gemini is supposed to be like a natural conversationalist. So there can be a lot of pressure on that energy to keep up the conversation, to keep things flowing, which can cause, even before the conversation has started, stress and like working yourself into a place where you're anxious going into it because there is so much weight that you put on your own ability to contribute and to communicate effectively. That's a point of pride for Gemini, to be able to get its point across and be understood, because Gemini, it's a very natural teaching energy. It wants to spread information and make sure that people understand things, like all the little details about something. Gemini loves to explain things very thoroughly, but with this placement, there could be all sorts of issues early on where you were discouraged from speaking, where your ideas were shut down and you were made to feel like they're not good ideas, like what you have to contribute will always be useless or unappreciated, like you're always going to be misunderstood. And this can easily come with difficulties within early education, learning disabilities, feeling like you're behind other people, or feeling like you're abnormally ahead of other people. You could have a really hard time speaking up for yourself, saying what you need. Or you could have authority figures tying your worth to your intelligence. One thing that can really come with this is a massive fear of making mistakes, of being seen as wrong or making an error. But please understand that mistakes are prime growth opportunities for this energy. It's almost a good idea to seek out situations where you could possibly make a mistake, because then you teach yourself, okay, I can handle it. I can handle being wrong, because this can tie your sense of being right and having the correct information to your overall value as a person within your own mind. It's not tied. You actually have a really natural skill at connecting with people who can really use your very unique understanding of things. This is really indicative of having a unique mind, a way of thinking that is most likely different from the people around you, but it is powerfully important. You're meant to think the way that you do. You're meant for your mind to work in this way. It's about accepting what you can't change about yourself, because those are the parts of us that need the most love and attention. And then you can focus on improving anything that can be improved, any areas that you would really like to focus on. Because one thing with especially Chiron in the third house is that this can be massive jack of all trades, master of none energy. The sooner that you can focus on like specializing in one particular thing, you might find that things go a lot more smoothly. Obviously, it has to be the right thing for you, something that really works for you, but being able to put all of your focus and all of your attention into one very meaningful thing can really help with easing the difficulty of having such scattered energy, or like being indecisive, not knowing what to do, because Gemini energy is typically very skilled. It catches on quickly and tends to have its own way of doing things as well. So it can definitely come across as rebellious and sometimes even oddly stubborn for an air sign. But there's a thing with rules in Gemini where it's like, we know the rules. Whether we follow the rules or not, we make sure we know them. And when you have Chiron in the third house, this can be a sign of when it's in its more unhealed state, being the sort of person who knows the rules and will preach them but won't actually practice them, which is important for a teacher. Like, even if you give somebody incredible advice, it's perfect. If they see that you're not doing it, it can weaken the message a bit. But especially early on in life with the third house Chiron placement, there can be a lot of experimentation and potentially like wastefulness, not being thoughtful enough in your purchases, decisions, conversations, relationships. There can be a lack of like thinking things through or making the right decisions. There can even be like a compulsively making the wrong decision sort of thing with this energy. I mean, Mercury, the ruler of Gemini, can be such a smooth talking energy. This can lead to a complete avoidance and like failure to see your own failures, your own issues, and where you are struggling. There can be like total denial. This is a placement to watch out for any sort of like natural coercive skills that you have, any ways that you might have a tendency to say things that might not necessarily be true because you know the sort of reaction that they're going to get, even if they're like white lies, even if this is for the good of other people. Speaking truth is really important with this. And the naturally almost deceptive nature of this energy when it's being improperly channeled. This is how we can be blind to our own faults, because just think of like method acting. In that moment, it's true. Just be really clear on whether what you're saying in the moment, like what I'm saying is you can convince yourself. There is a potential here to be able to play roles so naturally, to be able to fit into what you think people want you to be, that it can be like the most innocent form of deception because you think you're doing the right thing, or it could even be so automatic that you don't even think about it at all. This can be the sort of placement where you've always had to sort of lie to some degree about who you are, or you've been forced based off of, I don't know, like the expectations from the people around you in authority when you were young. Your safety could have been up to the way that you communicated, the way that you expressed yourself. There are really all sorts of different ways that this energy can manifest. So it's very particular to you in your own specific way, because every single one of us, we develop differently. We're having entirely different experiences from our own unique perspective and interacting with whatever we interact with in early life. This wires us in certain ways, and we are all just so unique. Nobody has the same experience growing up every step of the way. We should have sympathy and compassion and understanding for each other. But what can come with this energy in its healed form is such an incredible ability to teach, to spread messages, and the most incredibly healing empathy for other people who have difficulties with learning or communicating. This is an incredible energy for being like a mentor for people who need help and guidance, because you're a natural guide. You're somebody who has experienced difficulty in communicating in whatever way that is yours. You know that struggle, and you have this particular focus because you're able to help people so strongly in this way. This is like the way that your soul chose in this lifetime to be of aid to others, and it's a really honorable one because it comes to you so naturally to teach and to give people useful, helpful information. You very naturally have this desire to be able to contribute to the constant collective conversation we're all having. But with your unique experience and your unique way of seeing everything based off of how you have developed in this world, that perspective is just so incredibly valuable. And when you're in the healed Chiron energy, that's when you attract students and people who are going to be so deeply appreciative of what you have to offer. It's just important to look at your own perception of the way that you speak and articulate things, express things, your idea of your own intelligence, that you don't look at it in a critical way. You don't compare yourself to other people. You need to see what it is that you have to offer specifically through your experience and through your own understanding. Your words are so valuable. What you have to contribute is so valuable. Your experience and what you've been through is like tailor-made to help other people whose experiences you will understand. It's just really important not to tie your worth to what you know, to your knowledge, to how much you know, to how well you can write, how well you can spell, how fast you can read. There are so many ways that we can shut ourselves down and feel like we can't even start in the first place because we might make a mistake, we might be wrong. But I believe that it is always better to take a step forward than to just stay there. I mean, obviously there are different situations, but just energetically, when faced with a problem, sitting in that energy, allowing it to make you feel bad about yourself, that's never going to be more helpful than actively taking a step towards something, like anything. Just make sure that you're not stagnating in pain. Chiron is intentionally painful, it's intentionally uncomfortable because it wants us to get up and heal ourselves so that we can be the person that we're meant to be and connect with those other people who can really use our energy and our understanding. I know it's not easy. I absolutely understand. This is such a hard thing. Like, Chiron is an incredibly painful and difficult thing as you work through it, and what it's related to, the layers that you peel back as you go deeper and deeper. It feels like it doesn't get any easier, but I promise it will. It's just so important not to resist who you really are and what you feel drawn to do. Maybe you're meant to write a book or start an entirely new way of doing anything. I know that this can absolutely come with feeling unsupported, feeling like nobody cares about what you have to say, but I care, okay? And all of the people who are attuned to your unique type of healing energy, they care too, and you want to be able to meet them. You want to be able to align with your purpose and feel that sense of being healed, even just working towards that. It's always better than sitting there and feeling like there's absolutely nothing you can do about it. A lot of this work is internal. And with this energy in particular, one of the most helpful things that you can do is get out there and like risk making mistakes. Just get your voice heard, get your thoughts straight. Think about what your priorities are. Think about what is your ideal voice? What is your ideal voice saying? If you could tell everybody something right now, what would you want to tell them? Do you have any uplifting messages for everybody? It can come through in crazy ways, but I'm 100% sure that if you have Chiron in Gemini or third house energy, you have a message and it's meant to be heard. So fixing your relationship with the way that you relay that message is the most important thing that you can do regarding healing this energy. So, hope that this is helpful. Let me know what you think. When I'm in Gemini energy, I could go on forever, so I'm just gonna stop it here because it seems like a good place. Thank you so much for watching. I really, really appreciate you. I love you. Bye.